Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the new estates in Wellington, we have many new ponds which are part of the sustainable drainage systems. They should hold water during periods of rainfall and then release the water slowly over the next hours or even days into watercourses. At the moment, all these ponds have some form of barrier, such as fence, knee rails or hedging, to discourage people getting too close to the water and help them become wildlife havens, areas. Controversially, the council had asked the developer to remove all the fencing around the large pond on the Davidson's Church Field development, as the open space is near adoption. This pond has become a valuable wildlife habitat and sometimes hosts a kingfisher in winter. I totally understand why the council doesn't want the long-term cost of repeatedly replacing large lengths of socket fencing, but I understand why some residents are unhappy at having no barriers so close to the play equipment used by the children across a wide range of ages. Can the Cabinet member allow officers to look at some compromise of using a mixture of a knee rail, some new hedging around this very significant pond, as is used by the other sites in Wellington? Given it is possible the hedging would actually count toward biodiversity offsetting, and I'm sure myself and the other local councils and volunteers would plant the hedging. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conjure. Given the number of questions we still have to go, I'll allow the members' questions to continue. Thank you. Councillor Gutteridge, want to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Conjure, for the question. The adoption of public open space on the 3 developments at the top of Weddington Road are progressing, but are at different stages. The furthest along is the Davidson Church Field site. The fencing was removed around the SUDS, Sustainable Urban Drainage System feature, as it was not on the approved plans. And contrary to the Council's adopted water safety policy. The Council is currently preparing for the adoption of this site, which should be completed later this year. Parks have to sign it off, then it goes to legal. And it should be noted that the balancing feature is no closer to the play facilities as they are to the river anchor itself, and that our water safety policy will be applied in determining the future management arrangements for the whole site.
Thank you, Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Conjure, you have a supplementary?
Yeah, very briefly, I wasn't making the point that it was required by our water safety policy. I was asking, could we have a compromise and look at planting, hedging and knee rail? So can I ask, can we consider having an additional feature of the knee rail and some hedging, because it would make residents feel safer if there was a bit of a barrier between the play area and the very deep, very large pond. And one of the things the pond is different for is it will freeze in winter, unlike the river anchor, which is a very different environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Would you like to respond, Councillor Gutteridge?
Thank you. I'll say it again. We have a water safety policy, and we will adhere to the water safety policy. If you would like to ride up to Thornhill, you can see the Thornhill Park and see the pond that we have with the various wildlife, mallard ducks, wood pigeons, magpies, moorhens nesting at the moment, and see that for your own thing. But we must adhere to the water safety policy when we adopt it.
Thank you, Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Wright.
Yes, with regard to the former Woolworth site, could the council leader explain the lack of due diligence in the leasing arrangements and update the council as to any further developments in the situation?
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Wilson.
Mr Mayor, I do get rather concerned and disappointed with the Green Party opposite constantly talk down our town centres and the work we are doing to transform and breathe new life into Nuneaton. It is absolutely wrong to say that there was a lack of due diligence with regards to the old Woolworths site. Is Councillor Wright now going to claim that he has the gift of foresight and knowing what the future holds? No one at the time the lease was signed knew that Wilko's was going to collapse and go into administration. No one. We signed the lease in good faith, working to regenerate the Church Street, Bridge Street end of town and keep a much-loved Wilko's store in Nuneaton. Woolworths offered, and does still offer, a great site to relocate to, and it is only down to the actions of the national retailer that we are in this position, not on our part. Unfortunately, as the lease was signed prior to the collapse of Wilko's, we are bound into a legally binding agreement. This remains with the administrator, and we are trying to find a way forward, which may include serving notice to discontinue the lease. But to date, the administrator has given us no indication of their future plans. We have had interest in the site, which is extremely encouraging, and I hope that we are able to resolve this soon. But the only lack of due diligence has been the drafting of this question, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Question 7, Councillor Evans, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the portfolio holder agree with me that this Conservative administration has now met its manifesto commitments to safeguard Bedford Woodlands against inappropriate development?
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Smith, will you choose one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I thank Councillor Evans for his question and would absolutely agree that this Conservative administration has fully honoured its manifesto commitments to safeguard the Bedworth Woodlands from inappropriate development. The Woodlands story started back in 2014 when the then Labour administration made a similar manifesto promise to the residents of Bedworth, declaring that whilst they were in control, the Woodlands would be in safe hands, protected from development and would never be built on. Wind forward to 2019 and the controlling Labour administration, having agreed to take 4,000 overflow houses from their friends in Coventry, broke their manifesto promise and allocated the Woodland site for over 800 houses in their disastrous borough plan. When they adopted their third-rate plan, the Labour administration made another promise that due to the now out-of-date data the plan was based on, and having taken 10 years to produce the plan, they would start an immediate review of that plan, as recommended by the Inspector at the Public Examination hearings, and this was another promise broken. By 2021, residents, having tired of the failing Labour administration and with no borough plan review in sight, elected the current Conservative group to take over the running of the council on a manifesto promise that we would kick-start an immediate review of the borough plan and remove the woodlands and an allocation of nearly 200 dwellings off Lanterton Road in Bolkington as strategic development sites. Within just 3 months of taking control, it was the Conservatives that kept their manifesto promise by holding an issues and options public consultation to lay the ground for the borough plan review. And from that point, the Bedworth Woodlands and the Lancing Road in Bolkington sites were no longer destined to be allocated as strategic sites in the emerging plan. After just 3 years, not 10, that review is now nearing completion, having been submitted to the Secretary of State and Inspectorate for examination in public, with hearings due to be held as early as July. The review process has been a mammoth task, and I must take this opportunity to publicly thank our excellent planning policy team, who really have gone above and beyond to deliver a first-class plan in record time, having been faced with overhauling 15 major policy documents that the Labour group have failed to keep up to date. Finally, to underpin the seriousness with which this Conservative administration takes its duty to upholding its manifesto promises, I'm delighted to let Council know that just last night a planning application was before the planning committee with a proposal to build 150 houses on the woodland site, and I'm happy to say it was unanimously rejected by the committee. So in answer to your question, Councillor Evans, unlike Labour, this Conservative administration takes its manifesto promises seriously and has absolutely kept its manifesto promise to protect the Bedworth woodlands from development.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I ask the leader about the £20 million from the government, which is much needed for the regeneration of Bedworth, for an update on the progress with the procedures so that this can go ahead at the earliest date possible with minimum delay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hampton. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is indeed excellent news. On top of the £16 million we secured from the Levelling Up Fund for Bedworth for the new leisure centre, as well as the £14 million investment by the council and developers, and the £716,000 from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund for the refurbishment of the Bedworth Indoor Market, that we now have £20 million to establish a town deal for Bedworth. We are in the process of setting up a new town deal board for Bedworth and seeking a chair of the board. We have received start-up funding of £250,000 to begin the work of putting together the board and help facilitate the work that will need to be done to put together the plan of what we want to spend the funding on. Additional officer capacity will be brought in to enable this work. As part of this process, we will work together with local businesses, education, health and charity sectors to establish the town deal board and plan so we can carry on the legacy of levelling up Bedworth that this Conservative administration began in 2021. We pledge to support levelling up and investment in Bedworth. Promise made, promise kept, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. That concludes the questions from members. We move forward to item number 8,